All right. So I've got my layers over here on the left, right? And if I click and hold the plus, you can see I can add any number of layers. 9 times out of 10, we're adding a drawing layer, and we're renaming it, right? So this could be the floor, right? Then on the floor layer, I could, draw a floor, right? And I'm always using my paintbrush, right? I'm hitting Command Z to undo, just like in any program that you've been using or used to, right? And at some point, right, I'll get the perfect floor. If I hold spacebar, I can move the canvas. So let's, assume that's the floor I want. Down here, I don't have to worry about what anything is because it's off camera. And we haven't talked about moving cameras. So this camera is stationary. And I could add a color. Right? So over here, if I scoot this a little, I've got some standard colors that it gives me, and I'm going to recommend that you never use these, right? These are very intense colors, and it'll make your animation look like a flash animation from 1995, or a Macromedia, what you call it. So to add a new color, again, I would just hit plus. It'll duplicate whatever color you were highlighting, right? So if I was on white and hit plus, it gives me another white. Right? And I can view my colors in a swatch mode, right? So they can start to build horizontally. So if I want to change this color here, I never change the black or the white, right? I start adding and changing them over here. I can pen click, right? I've got my Wacom, but if you don't have that, you can, what is it? Control click on a Mac, and then something click on a PC. I don't know if anybody, is it control on a PC? Anybody have any luck pulling up this window? Or is it option, or is it command? Nobody's on a PC? All right. So I'll go to edit. And now I can change the color to any color that I want. Right? Here's multiple wheel mode. Right? I can make the floor like a sort of a dark green, right? Okay, that looks pretty good. You can see the edges of my canvas, or where the camera is, right? Okay, let's see, we got a raised hand. What's up?
I can't use the tablet, the Wacom thing in the lab because it says it needs the name of an administrator, like the password and the username. So I'm kind of confused on how I get it to work, or should I just use my mouse instead for now?
Just use your mouse if you're in the lab.
Okay.
Yeah. We'll figure that out later. Any other questions? Okay, so the other thing that I need to do is I need to put a ball layer, right? So to add another layer, I click and hold on this plus, and as I'm holding, I can choose drawing and put ball, right? So over here, I can draw a ball, right? I need to go back to my black so I can see things. And I make sure that I connect it because I want to paint it, right? So I can make a new color over here. And I can control click it and edit. And I can make it, you know, any color I want, right? So this pink and green look like they go together pretty well, right? Oops, I gotta do paint bucket. And then it's weird, right? So sometimes you go to the paint bucket and it gives you the last color you use, not the one you just made, which would make more sense, but that's what it does. So we've got this ball. It's going to go to the ground and it's going to bounce, okay? Now, if I was smart, I would put another layer to sort of sketch out where this ball is going to go, right? And this will be like, you know, the overlay or the sketch or um, uh, the top layer, and I could put sketch. I'm trying to put a space bar in here and it's not allowing me. So what should I do to make a space?
Underscore?
Exactly, underscore, right? So sketch. The top sketch is something that you'll need, and I can make it any color, maybe even something really bold. So this, let's say it's gonna bounce here, and then it's gonna bounce here, and then it goes, you know, less high and less far, less high and less far, right? Is that perfect? No, but it'll do. So there are two ways to animate in Toon Boom primarily, right? And one is by dragging. So that's referred to as, you know, flash animation or After Effects or 2.5D or postcarding, or, you know, just moving basically some static thing that you drew. Then there is the onion skin frame by frame hand-drawn effect, right? So when something moves frame by frame, you're redrawing it, right? Like a hand moving. So when the ball hits the ground, it's gonna squish, and then it's gonna expand, and then it hits the ground and it's gonna squish, right? So I could fake that by squishing it, right? So let me move the ball now. Let me make everything 60 frames, right? So I'm gonna select all of these by holding Shift. I'm gonna control click them and extend the exposure. And I'll say go out to 60. So now when I move in the timeline, things actually survive and live to 60 frames, right? So at the top, I could, you know, when I move this thing, it gives me a keyframe in the timeline. And I'm making sure that all of them are highlighted, obviously, or else all of them get moved. So let's say in 10 frames, it comes down and it hits. But it's probably not going to follow that arch, right? It's going to go straight. So at about the halfway point, I could say, no, go there, follow the arch like you're supposed to. I could even, make it follow closer. Okay, so it's following the arch. Then let's say at 20, it ends up over here, right? Well, that's not good. So let me tell it what to do. All right, follow the arch, like that, good. And follow the arch. Okay, pretty basic. And then it's probably not the same amount, right? So I went 10, 20, 30. I could do like maybe a little less than 30. Put it here. And I'll say, all right, follow that arch there. Doo-doo. This all makes sense, doesn't it? And if you get stuck, don't worry, because you have a recording. You can ask me questions in a few minutes. Look at that. That's pretty good. Dunk, 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 right? I'll hit play. And it's not the worst thing you've ever seen, right? But here's the thing. We want it to squish. We want it to have animated properties, some frame by frame onion skin. So what do we do here, right? What we have to do is like delete it when it hits. And we also have to make it sit in one place longer. So by that I mean instead of it bouncing immediately, what we're going to do is copy this frame, right? So usually I just do Command C, but we could say, where is it? Copy cells from the timeline. Yeah, here it is. Command C, Command B. Right, and then we could paste it here. So it's stopped, right? I copied this and I pasted it here. So boink, right? So between these, I'm gonna delete the ball and redraw it. Okay, here's the tricky part. I zoomed in and out of the timeline with the 1 and the 2 keys. Right. And then I'm gonna do the same thing. If I click here on, you see where the red is, and do zoom, right? The 1 or the 2 key. It just depends on what you click and what it allows you to zoom, right? So I'm back over here. So from this frame to this frame, I'm going to hit delete. And maybe I'll just do a real quick and dirty animation where I'm just going to squish the one frame. Okay, so how do I do this? This is my light table, by the way. See this little light bulb? Whatever layer I choose now, you can see how it highlights it. Right? When I have the light table off, everything is equally lit. Right? But if I click this light bulb, now it says, oh, you're working on this layer. Right? So how do I draw in here like a traditional animator doing the onion skin technique? Well, I'm going to assume it's this little onion over here. All right, the little onion, if I click it, it shows me where the ball was and is going. You can see the green is telling me that's where it's going, and the red is saying, well, that's where it was. Okay, and I can make it less green or less red or whatever. It doesn't matter, right? So I go into the place where it disappeared, and this is where I get to draw it squished. Right? That's a little wide. Okay. So it's squished. I'll come in here. Let's see what that looks like. Turn the onion skin off. Oh, I have to make it the right color, don't I? So, okay. Doink, doink. That looks pretty good, doesn't it? Things are happening. I'm happy. If I hit play, boink, that looks pretty good. And that was one frame, right? I mean, that's like doing the least amount of work. Usually you'd want to add, many more transitions in there. But, it does the job. So let's go to the next bouncing point. Okay, so it bounces here and then it takes off. But what we want is another gap. So I got to move this keyframe back because I'm going to copy it, Command-C, paste it, and then I'm going to delete again. Right? So it's got a landing point, delete, landing point, and then it goes. So I come in here, I turn on the onion skin, I grab my brush. It's probably not going to go lower than where it hits, right? It's going to hit the ground and expand. Then I can fill it in. Boink. Okay, that's all pretty good. And then we got one more. Or two more. Boink. And I'm going to move this keyframe back. I'm going to copy it, paste it. Now I got a gap I can delete. I can come in here. All right, I can just stay on this tool, on this brush. Maybe it's squishing a little less, right? Fill it in. And one more. We can't really get a gap in here, right? It doesn't need to squish, it just lands. Okay. So let's watch it. Let's see what we got. We'll zoom back out. Go to the beginning. Turn on our loop. So when I hit play, it'll just keep playing. Okay. All right. That works. Now, if you didn't get this in your first try, watching me, following along, blah, 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 right? I'm going to say, don't worry about it, right? This is the first time you've seen the software at all. But once you get the concept, and once you rewind the video a little bit, it's going to make perfect sense. Now, what do I want to do to this environment? Well, I want to make it better, right? I want to make it better. I want to put a shadow on the ball. I want to put a shadow on the ground. I want to make this look good, right? So I can come in here to the ball layer, and I can put a shadow, right? So what I want to do is copy this pink, right? I'll hit plus and edit it and give it a shadow layer. And I'm going to tell you my secret for that, which is it's in the multiple wheel mode. And it's this first panel And if I'm doing a highlight, I go a little up and left, right? If I'm doing a shadow, I go a little down and right, because that's toward the hue of the color, and it makes it look very good. Oh, of course it's like, so I gotta pick that color. Then with this black selection tool, I can just delete that. Okay, and I got a nice shadow there. So let's see. Does the shadow exist everywhere? It does not. Right? I gotta go in there now. I gotta do a shadow for this guy. Right? And then I gotta go in there and give a shadow for this guy. Right? And I'll go here, do a shadow for this guy. Okay, and that's it. And now, if we go back, we're starting to make something look good. Okay. The other thing I can do, of course, I can add a highlight to it, right? I can also add a shadow to the ground, which is a little more complex. Right? So let's say I want to do that. How would I do that? Well, I could hand draw it and move it frame by frame by frame. It'll take forever. Or I could, on top of the floor layer, but under the ball layer, I could add a ball underscore shadow. And where it lands, it could be the biggest, right? I could say, okay, here's where it lands. Right, there's a shadow. And I'll fill it in with a shadow green. Right, so I'm going to hit plus. I'm going to edit. And I told you for shadow, you want to go down and right a bit, right? Get into that hue. And oh, click the right color and do that. And if I am very careful with my black selection arrow, I can get just the line and hit delete, right? Now, what I want to do is click and drag this to the beginning, right? And then I want to control click, extend exposure, and make this thing live also for 60 frames, right? So what I can do here is take this shadow with my transform tool, right, this square, and I can place it where it needs to go, right? So I'm going to say shadow, yeah, you go right there. I just moved it a bit to give it a keyframe, right? And then I'm going to say, okay, at this point, you go here. Right? At this point, you hit. That's pretty good. At this point, you go here. Yeah, that'll work. And then at this point where it hits, you go there. And then at this point, you go there. Okay, so now I get to play a game where I'm adjusting the scale of it. Boom, boom, boom. Oh, it's trying to move too quick and too slow. So let me reline this up. Okay, so when it goes up to the top, I want to make it small, right? So I'm going to click its corner. It gets bigger. No. This is the, not suggested way of animating that I was initially telling you about, right? Like the postcarding, it's sloppy. But you can see the difference here between, moving something and transitioning it versus doing it frame by frame. Okay, it went big there. Okay, so let's see what happens when we watch this. Shadow small, boink, right, it got big. Okay, here's where it gets small again. Big, small, big, big, small. Big, probably shouldn't go up like that, right? It should just go this, this side. Boink. And then it gets a little smaller, but not much, right? Like this, the shadow shouldn't necessarily go up. It should just go to the side. All right, let's see what we got. Let's watch it. Boink, boink. Okay. We've got a shadow on the ball. We've got a shadow on the floor. Not bad, right? The ball is a combination of hand-drawn onion skin technique where we actually squish it and just moving with the transform tool, right? The shadow on the floor is completely just using the transform tool, okay? So I'm gonna hit stop recording.